Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I'd like to start with two quick questions, if possible. How many of you sitting here this evening have been asked, so what do you want to do with your life? Okay, fair amount of hands. Even through the glare of my glasses, I can see that's just about everyone. Okay. Now, how many of you felt a little bit panicked when I asked that? Because you're not completely sure. A fair amount of hands again. Okay, so that's completely normal, and actually it might be a very good thing. Not knowing can be a very good thing. The second question is, what is the most important decision that you'll ever make in your life? Shout a few out. Career. Marriage, interesting. Anyone else? Your health, not really a decision to be fair, but fair enough. College, which college you'll go to? Excuse me? Peace. Well, it'd be wonderful if that was a decision we could all just make. Okay, we'll come back to you later with the answers to that. Okay, I'm a sports medicine professional and I work with athletes on a daily basis. Now in sports, we speak about a concept known as long-term athletic development. The basic idea of this concept is that the best athletes don't just funnel into a sport at age 5, work their way through that sport, and they get to kind of the top of the ladder. Most of the most successful athletes actually become athletes first, and then they specialize in a specific sport. So they might become a tennis player or whatever. So Roger Federer, for example, is a very good one to start with. So growing up, Roger Federer obviously grew up in Switzerland. He played basketball, he played football, he played badminton, skateboarding, a lot of snow sports, winter sports, handball, and obviously tennis. But he only focused on tennis once he was in his mid-teens, around 15 years old. But the other sports that he did, they gave him a couple of simple qualities that actually helped him be a better tennis player. So agility, balance, coordination. Oh, excuse me. Now I'd like to talk to you about Tiger Woods in contrast, okay? Tiger Woods very famously specialized super early. Before basically he could walk, he was swinging a golf club. He was on TV famously swinging a golf club. He used to watch his father play golf from his feeding chair as a baby. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people who follow golf and know anything about golf, he'd probably be the best golfer that we'll ever see in the history of the game. I'm not sure anyone will ever be as good as he was. But he also burnt out relatively early. His body suffered physically, mentally, emotionally. He didn't seem to be able to take the weight of that single identity that he had. I'd like to illustrate that point just by showing you this slide. If you can see from there, basically, the x-axis is the average starting age, and the y-axis is the mean specializing age. Now, this sample is of close to 3,000 athletes from 11 different countries across 44 Olympic disciplines. Okay, it's a study by DeBoscher and colleagues released in 2023. And you can see early specialization, when we talk about specialization, the definition of specialization is sacrificing all of the sports for one sport, playing a sport more than 8 months of the year, and playing for more hours in the week than your age in years. So if you're 12, you shouldn't be playing more than 12 hours a week, or technically you're early specializing. So you can see now, these are all people who made it to the elite level. Retrospectively, they went back and looked at their lives and what did they do. Most of them ended up specializing from 13, 14, 15 years old. Remember, these are people who made it to the top. Very few who specialize very early make it to the top. Of course, there's certain sports that lend themselves to early specialization, like gymnastics and swimming and things like that. But here's the interesting part. It isn't just about sports. This is about life. It's about careers. It's about relationships. And a lot of the most successful people in the world didn't specialize early. They zigzagged their way through. Zigzagged their way through their journey. And through their journey, they developed adaptability, they developed creativity, they developed longevity, they developed skills that they would use later on. So I'd like to pivot now and give you a few examples from the business and entrepreneurial world. Everyone knows Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs dropped out of college, but he kept sampling. He studied calligraphy, philosophy. He traveled through India seeking enlightenment. He settled on Zen Buddhism for a while. And he also studied design. Now, on the surface, this path seems pretty random. But when you consider that calligraphy class is the reason that Apple computers had beautiful fonts and design, something no other company at the time thought about, and which is actually a large factor in Apple's success today, you understand that maybe that zigzag was a good thing for him. Sarah Blakely, for anyone who doesn't know, invented Spanx. So she wanted to become a lawyer, but she failed the LSATs twice. She went on to work at Disney World, doing odd jobs. She tried stand-up comedy to try and make a living, or to try and make some extra money. She eventually settled on selling fax machines door to door. And it was through her own experiences with her stockings that she ended up coming up with this idea for Spanx, because she was running around middle America in the middle of the day in the heat, and her stockings were killing her. They didn't fit very well. They had closed toes, so she couldn't wear open shoes. Her feet couldn't breathe. So she thought about this and she problem solved. So all of her previous experiences had given her grit and creativity. She faced a problem, she solved that problem. She ended up 27 years old, she ended up inventing Spanx, founding the business Spanx. And then she went on to become the youngest self-made female billionaire at the time. So Melanie Perkins invented Canva. I'm sure a lot of us have heard of Canva. While in high school, she was a figure skater. She took figure skating quite seriously, and she also started a few small businesses, one of them making handmade scarves. After high school, she went to university, and she did a pretty general undergrad. She was aiming to major in communication, psychology, commerce. And at this time, she was also a private tutor, again, common theme, trying to make a little bit of extra money on the side. And what she was doing was she was tutoring kids in design, and she found that all of the tools at the time, like your Photoshops, etc., were pretty clunky, and the learning curve was pretty hard. So she thought to herself this would be much better if you could explore simpler and web-based alternatives for these kids learning. So she left university at the age of 19 to pursue a startup. She started something called Fusion Books first, which was relatively successful, and then she moved on to Canva, which is now a $30 billion business. And finally, Richard Branson, obviously, is the ultimate sampler. So Branson had ADHD, he had dyslexia, he performed famously poorly at school. His headmaster told him he was going to jail or he was going to become a millionaire. Pretty prophetic when he left school. So he started out trying to sell Christmas trees. He got into a newspaper. He then got into magazine, music, airlines, telecoms, even space travel. So some of those businesses failed, but some of them soared. And because he kept trying, Virgin is now a global brand across 30 industries. So these zigzags made these guys legends. And often when we're looking at life, and we're thinking what progress looks like, we see a straight line. Only goes in one direction. However, once we've got to somewhere that maybe we or other people deem successful, and we look backwards, we actually see that this is what progress looks like. Which you can tell from some of the stories we've already heard today. Whether it's in film production, whether it's in race car driving, it's never a straight line. There's always bumps in the road. So your future doesn't depend on having it all figured out now. It depends on being curious, sampling widely, and then diving in when you find the time is right. So a few minutes ago, I asked you what the most important question you would ever make or the most important decision you would ever make would be. So we heard college, we heard, what else did we hear? Excuse me? Career. So largely based around what decisions you're going to go, which college you're going to go to, where you're going to live, are you going to join the family business, et cetera, et cetera. These are the popular answers that people give. Now, economists, Nobel laureates, and even the Harvard Adult Development Study have come up with an answer to this, and it's probably not what you would think. It's the person you're going to marry. One person did say that. It's the person you're going to marry or the person that you're going to end up with. So basically, this decision affects all other decisions. It affects dual incomes, it affects savings behavior, it affects health outcomes. The Harvard study has shown that people in good relationships live longer, they live better lives. It affects stress, it affects divorce, and obviously on an economic scale, divorce can be a bad thing. Children's opportunities, but the crux is that that decision decides all the rest of the decisions that you make. So I'd like to leave you with three lessons for success. The lessons for success. Firstly, follow your passion. We've heard that already tonight from another speaker. Pursue what excites you, even if it doesn't seem immediately relevant to your career. You never know where it might lead. The second is that you should think outside the box. Innovation often comes from combining different fields of knowledge and expertise. So ask yourself, where are you going to get your different field of knowledge and your different expertise from? And the third is pursue good quality, healthy relationships. Because relationships, much like business, much like studying, much like success anywhere else, requires grit, determination, patience, all of the same qualities that you can later on use for the rest of your life. So I want you to leave, when you leave today, or at least when I leave the stage, I want you to think of your zigzags along your journey and understand that your zigzags are your strength. Again, this is not a bad thing. Embrace your zigzags. Don't fear the zigzag. Thank you.